Coming up on Transformers University, we're going to talk about a production company that has had a long-lasting effect on the Transformers fandom and Transformers history. It's the episode you always wanted to know about, but were afraid to ask. We're talking Omni Productions right now on Transformers University. Hello, my friend, and welcome to Transformers University. I am your host, Anthony Bricali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO, the Toy Archive, the website, Transformers University podcast, the Twitter, the YouTube, and oh so much more. I want to welcome you to what I expect to be a very fun episode of Transformers University. And it's kind of almost a fast-forward episode because after I put everything together for this episode, I realized that this company doesn't really make their appearance in official Transformers projects until 1992. In fact, the project we're talking about aired in 1992. But that said, we're talking about a series from 1987, and I would be remiss if we did not talk about Omni Productions, the folks behind the dub of the Japanese Transformers series, Transformers Headmasters. We're going to get into that series for a good chunk of the rest of 1987. It's, in fact, a series I've never seen the whole thing of. I haven't even seen most of it. I would say maybe up until studying for future episodes of the show, I have maybe seen 3 or 4 episodes, and they were pretty sure they were all dubs. Now, for those of you who may not know the difference between a sub and a dub, let me explain it real quick. So, the original Transformers Headmasters series, as it aired in Japan in 1987, aired in its native language of Japanese. So, a sub is when they take the Japanese series, leave in the Japanese audio, so the sound, the voices, all still speak in Japanese. However, you'll get subtitles, captions underneath with the translations into, in this case, English. The dub does sort of the same thing. It takes the audio tracks of the voices out and replaces them with actors speaking in English. Now, much like old Godzilla films and things that have been brought over from Japan to the U.S., things change, get lost in translation. Things are changed to match the way the lips move in the animation. This all exists prior to digital nonlinear video editing. So there's no real easy way to shift frames back and forth. A lot of this was done with analog equipment. A lot of this was done with beta tapes, presumably. I doubt they were done straight to VHS, but I would not be surprised. And so Omni Productions was one of these companies that specialized in dubbing foreign language films and TV shows from the East, from Eastern Asia. So places like Japan, Korea. I don't think they did too much of Chinese stuff. Maybe from Hong Kong, because that's where they were based. And they are responsible for the dubs of all 3 Japanese Transformers series, Headmasters, Master Force, and Victory, for English-speaking markets such as the Philippines and Hong Kong and I think Indonesia. These Omni Production dubs are sometimes referred to as the Star TV dubs, which is where they originally aired, or the Singapore dubs or the Indonesian dubs. So a lot of those terms are generally interchangeable with Transformers fans, but the Omni Productions versions of these shows are certainly worth watching. Now, my first experience with the Omni Productions versions of Headmasters, the handful of times I've seen Headmasters cartoons prior to doing this podcast, was at a BotCon, I want to say 2000, maybe 2001. Somebody I knew had a VHS tape of some of the better episodes of Headmasters, and I think it might have been a Master Force episode on there. And I had actually seen a couple episodes of Victory by then, but those were subtitled and not dubbed. Now, when I say better, I don't necessarily mean good. At least not in the way we would typically mean it. Sometimes, entertainment is so bad, it comes back around to being good. Case in point, the film The Room, right? For those of you who have ever seen The Room, hi, Mark. Want to throw the football around? That is a great case, great example of something being so bad, it comes back around to being good. I think there are a number of films and TV shows over the years that you realize you like a lot more because they're terrible. The Omni Productions dub of Headmasters has kind of taken on a life of its own because it's so terrible. Case in point, this hotel room in BotCon, I want to say it was, I think Jen from Stasis podcast, Icon on the Ground, guest on my TFU News and Views episode about Transformers Kingdom. I think she brought it to the hotel, and I don't even think we had a VCR. I think we had to find someone who had a VCR rented for their room just to watch the tape. And so you had about like 15 to 30 people in a room watching Headmasters in its dub form, trying to figure out what was going on between the animation, the weird translation into English, and try to make sense of everything that was there. And this is all pre TF Wiki. This is all pre having folks who actually spoke Japanese translate text on screen and translate the actual speaking words from the dialogue to see where things were lost, and still some things being lost in translation I can't really explain. And so that is why the Omni Productions versions of Headmasters are so near and dear to a lot of Transformers fans' hearts. In fact, if you wanted to go check out a podcast on it, my friend Brian Kilby over at Radio Free Cybertron had started going episode by episode through this series, through the Omni Productions versions, to just kind of have fun and a good time with friends. And so that podcast is called What Happened to the Headmasters. It is currently on hiatus, but Brian had mentioned to me and had mentioned on Radio Free Cybertron a number of times that he has plans to dive back into that at some point. So here's your chance to catch up on those if you want to go and just listen about the Omni stuff right now after listening to this show.
Hey, want to help out this podcast or the website TFU.INFO? There's a number of ways you can do it. Let me tell you how. You can help us directly by joining our Patreon and enrolling as a student at Transformers University. There, you'll get early access to the podcast as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes peeks and perks for as little as $1 a month. Sign up is quick and easy. Just swing on by to www.patreon.com/TFUINFO. Another way you can help us is by using our Amazon link, www.tfu.info/Amazon. Type that into your browser whenever you want to shop at Amazon, and a portion of what you spend will be contributed back to us. It's that easy. Finally, you don't become the world's longest running transforming toy archive without some help from other fans. We're always on the hunt for photos of figures and accessories we're missing from our pages. If you'd like to contribute, go to tfu.info/help for a list of what we need, or send an email to info@tfu.info. tfu.info, the Alpha Trion and Omega Prime of transforming toys. Now, back to the show.
Now let's talk a little bit about Omni Productions as a whole. It was founded by a gentleman named Rick Thomas, who is also an actor in the Transformers series as a whole and a lot of Omni Productions work, and as Rick with an just with a K, so it's R-I-K, Thomas, Rick Thomas, and his wife Ina Chow, and she was the business and production side of Omni Productions. They dubbed films in the 90s for the most part, including some Jackie Chan films, Dragon Ball, The Magic Begins, Ranma 1/2, and a handful of Godzilla films, like I had mentioned earlier. Like, this is the kind of the bread and butter for dubbing production companies. Now, it's also worth mentioning that this company was based out of Hong Kong. Rick Thomas, from what I could find on him, was a former lieutenant colonel in the British Special Forces, retired to Hong Kong out of the service. He had served in Vietnam and the Congo, and was a voice actor when he was in Hong Kong, and went from voicing dubs to starting his own business making dubs. He was interviewed by a magazine called Giant Robot back in 2001, and was about 60 or 61 years old at the time. So if that was 2001, let's add 20 years to that. He's about 80 or 81 years old today, assuming he's still alive. I could not find a lot on Rick Thomas, but I'm surprised I found this much. Now, what I found on this was basically from interviews of people that worked for Omni Productions or voiced for Omni Productions through the 90s. So the interviewer in these interviews was kind enough and keen enough to ask about Rick Thomas whenever people would mention him. Now, one thing I got out of one of these interviews, actually a couple of these interviews, is that Omni worked very much under the terms of time is money. So the quality of their output was based on how much they were paid. So cheaper jobs got rushed through with less acting nuance and more focus on just getting the project done. And I imagine jobs they got paid more for, they took more time with. I'm guessing that these Transformers dubs, for the most part, were on the cheaper side, which has led to hilarity in 2021 and in the years leading up to it. Because these dubs are so rushed in a lot of ways, especially in the translations, that it has led to dozens of in-jokes in the fandom, such as this one.
What's happened to the Headmasters? Can't they fight without Chrome Dome? Fortress Maximus has come himself.
And we can't forget about Goth Wheelie.
It's too late for apologies.
Nor can we forget about the time Spike dies and tells this to his son Daniel.
Boys can cry, but not out loud. Men don't cry. They only get stronger.
Father!
And this will continue on to Master Force, where we meet, quote, Optimus Prime.
Tell me, what's your name?
Optimus Prime. I'm Japanese.
And we have to think a little bit about Soundwave.
Darn that Soundwave.
And then Soundwave.
Galvatron has reused some of Soundwave's parts, along with some other new parts, and has reconstructed another Soundwave, and renamed him New Soundwave.
And then we must raise the question about Scorponok.
But will Scorponok return? Of course he will.
And those are just some of the more popular sound clips from the Omni Productions versions, and most of those come from Headmasters. We are going to have some fun going over the Headmaster series, both in the Japanese language and in the English language. I've already started research for our next episode, and I got to say I'm pleasantly surprised, one, with the storyline in abstract from Headmasters. Dubbing and translation subtitles aside, just to tell you off the top of my head, having watched a few episodes now, it's better than I expected, even in the dubbed form. Though the dubbed form has so much more charm thanks to the folks at Omni Productions.
Thanks for listening to the show. Stick around to hear what's coming up next episode, but first, I want to fill you in on a few ways you can stay in touch with the show. Want to be on the show? Leave us a voicemail at 702-763-4838. That's 702-POD-4TFU. Or send an email to info@TFU.info. Be sure to catch us on Twitter at TFU_info and on Facebook and Instagram under the username TFU.INFO, all one word. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TFU.INFO, where we post all of our podcasts plus special video segments, reviews, and live coverage of Transformers-related events such as New York Toy Fair and New York Comic-Con. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit us at www.tfu.info, the world's longest-running transforming toy archive.
So, whenever someone tells you that the dubs are terrible, yes, they are. But that's a good thing. And we're going to explore why as we continue our way through 1987 and through the Japanese series of Transformers Headmasters, the cartoon. In fact, next episode, we're diving right in to the first 3 episodes of Transformers Headmasters, the series from Japan. And I really do hope you take the ride along with me. Once again, I am your host, Anthony Bricali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.info, the website, the Toy Archive, this podcast, and so much more. Until next time, see you.